Iowa's News Now Sports has your all-access pass to all things Hawkeyes. This is Eye on the Hawks, sponsored by University of Iowa Healthcare.
Like what we just had in the locker room is crazy. Like I wish I could be there, honestly. But it was...
Right now I have 120 folks out at the tailgate right now waiting to celebrate this with me too.
So I was a Boston Celtic fan growing up. Red Auerbach. What if you did that today? Lit a cigar up on a bench. Anyway, I'm showing restraint. I'm not doing that, but, you know.
It's maybe the most dad thing we've heard Kirk Ferentz say all season.
Hey,
I'm showing restraint. Like, look at me go.
It's outdoors. Light that baby up.
We were indoors at the time, as you can see for those watching on YouTube right now. Welcome to Eye on the Hawks, a Sunday edition where Iowa now is heading to Indy officially. A 15-13, of course it was 15-13, win over Illinois to clinch the outright Big Ten West Championship, the final Big Ten West.
Round of applause.
Round of applause.
You gotta give the Hawkeyes
Second
a
time
round of
we've used the
applause.
soundboard in 3 months. We're doing it. Mitch Fick, Owen Sebring, Mike Howell. A lot to get to recapping that win that puts the Hawkeyes now at 9-2. Oh, if it weren't for that little left arm of Cooper DeJean, as we all now hope and pray for all the best for his right leg. Saw him crutching around, and kid is very soft-spoken, doesn't show a lot of emotion. He was giddy. What a week he's had, seeing him on the sideline. Plenty of celebration video to watch if you are watching this on the YouTube stream, or if you're listening on the audio side later this week. Encourage you, get to the Iowa's News Now YouTube channel and watch these videos even after the fact, too, and go to the Iowa News Now Instagram page, all these clips. Tons of awesome stuff from down on the field. You finally had a couple touchdowns go your way. The two touchdowns.
Both of them.
We're going to see the Ostrengo one in a little bit. That was picture perfect.
Yeah, it was great.
Boy, what a stretch he's on. So go there, and of course, Eye on the Hawks on Twitter for everything else too. But let's just start hearing from the champions themselves. Iowa at the podium after the 15-13 win, celebrating a win that somehow, some way, the little Hawkeyes that could made happen through anything and everything in 2023.
Anytime you can be a champion, if you can say champion, that's a good thing. And, there's more goals out there to be had. Nothing will be easy, but I think we're all thinking the same thing here. Just, it goes back to the players. Like, that's why we do this. And just so happy for these guys, what they've endured, what they've gone through.
It feels awesome, but the biggest part that feels the best is being able to do it with the team. They welcomed me in, 6-7 months ago, and I have never been more grateful or prideful to be a part of a team in my life.
Yeah, it's huge just being able to have guys that you can trust on, depend on, lean on in times of struggle and times of celebration. So we've been very blessed with the group that we've put together and the coaching staff that we've put together. It's just great to be able to get a win like this. Every win's important, but it starts to mean a little bit more towards the end of the season. So we're all very blessed, very, very excited to have this opportunity.
It's definitely feels good to be able to go home. I have a lot of family there, and probably going to start asking for tickets tonight. And I'll probably end up 30 short. So, but just excited for this team. When you play hard and you put yourself in positions like this, obviously the Big Ten championship is a team's goal in the Big Ten. That's day one.
How does it feel to be Big Ten West champions?
Phenomenal. So good. I'm going to probably get emotional up here, to be honest with you, but we've battled so much adversity, and I'm just so proud of every single person in that locker room, whether it be players, coaches, every single person. And that's why I think it just means more. We just keep fighting, honestly. I've never really been, all those other teams we kept fighting, but, this team, they just keep coming. We just keep coming and just so proud of these guys. I can't say that enough. And you guys I wish you guys were there during the week because you would see what I'm seeing, whether it be in the film room, whether it be on the practice field, just how these guys battle and fight. And I'm so happy that I came back for my 6th year because I'm able to witness it and I'm able to, step out there and be a leader, so just so proud of these guys.
We've heard that so many times. Maybe it's been looked at tongue-in-cheek by the media, as we've heard a few analyses of, well, boy, you should see so-and-so in practice, referencing former players that people may or may not have called to be benched over a couple of years, and I loved that sentiment from Joe Evans of, listen, no matter what the games may look like and the scores may look like, and Iowa hits unders as if it were their employment, don't act like these guys aren't working hard, and don't act like they're not passionate. We saw that overflow in a lot of ways there. Torrey Taylor flexing on what an ovation he got for senior day. This Iowa is 9-2, and your Big Ten West champions, having lost their starting quarterback, 2 tight ends. We've listed all this off. We'll do it again. A beat-up O-line. Tyler Ellsbury has been fantastic filling in for a beat-up Logan Jones. Nick DeYoung has jumped in a couple times helping out Rusty Feth as he's gotten healthy. Deontay Vines is out. I was thinking about the linebacking may be the only group that hasn't been hit at all.
Why'd you bring that up?
Yeah, I know, yeah. The defensive line, obviously Noah Shannon out because of the suspension. What an ovation he got on senior day and as a captain. Secondary, now you lose Cooper, which obviously also impacts the special teams. It has just been resilience and that move forward mentality. I mean, how many teams can lose that many guys? So many guys on crutches.
Yeah.
Eric all out.
If I were to ask you guys before the season, name 5 players that we can't afford to lose to injury this season, who would
have been in the top one for me.
Who would have been those number 5?
I think we all thought Cade was going to have like a magical season, just behind this offense that struggled the past few years.
I feel like top 3 names you'd say would be Cade, Luke, and Cooper.
Yeah, those 3 for sure.
You might say Torrey in there, so
I'd probably say Torrey.
Thank goodness he's stayed healthy. But
there's something to be said, though, about the Big Ten West. I think the only team who hasn't had an injury at quarterback is Minnesota, right? I mean, Hudson Card didn't play because he got hurt. Well, I guess Northwestern, too, those 2. But, every team's dealing. I don't know if it's, just a weird year for that.
It's a weird year in the NFL, too. This has been an incredible year for the injured quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, it's crazy. It seems like just every single week you see somebody going out. Joe Burrow just being a late.
Yeah. Altmaier did get hurt, but I think Bielema did the old switcheroo, said that Altmaier was starting and then didn't play a snap.
John Paddock, that kid, I was surprised to see his stat line was 22 of 47 because it felt like Iowa did a great job on first down, more often than not, far more often than not. They had so many 2nd and 10s, the Illini did, and Paddock just would come up and they moved the ball really quick, and Jay and those guys talked about they could tell they changed up their offensive scheme to take advantage of Cooper being out, really getting the ball out quickly. 13 PBUs, I had so many logged from every level of the defense. Jamari Harris played outstanding, but Joe had a few pass breaks, including the final 4th down one.
I thought he had
Jay
the final
Higgins
2 even.
He was up there, yeah. Y.A. Black had one, I know. Nick Jackson, I think, had one. Kirk might have had one for this game, for all I know. I mean, it was such a team put together with such patchwork in some cases out of necessity, but when it did come down to it, I mean, the guys were naming off Jay Higgins, Joe Evans, Caleb Johnson, who I think at least 2 of us had as offensive MVP for this season, went away for a little while.
Yeah.
People were wondering what's up with Caleb Johnson. We'll talk more about him later, but
Caleb's really had a good game. Caleb Brown with 10 targets, 7 catches, and 71 yards. That doesn't seem like a lot in general, but you got to put it in the context of the others.
There's a couple columns out there of beat writers being the wide receiver emergence. I'm they had 10 catches. Yeah. Which is, I mean, but again,
they actually had
14 catches between Seth, Nico, and Caleb yesterday.
I think this is Seth's first multi-catch game in a while. Usually it's he has one for 50.
Made some tough catches too. That's good to see because he had some drops.
Nico's made some really tough. Boy, it's
you can truly see how much these guys are getting comfortable with Deacon. I mean, I feel like that was the theme over the first couple of games. Is some balls were not on target, but other balls were there, but guys were just dropping or slipping, or there was just something not right about that chemistry. But it seems like the last 2 games that's changed a lot.
Yeah, we'll talk about Deacon's road, and we'll get a look at his numbers, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Addison Ostrenga's, we talked about Eric All. Would he end up remaining the leading receiver for this season despite missing half the season? We're in a situation where Addison Ostrenga is probably going to end up leading the team in receptions. He's had an unreal last 3 weeks, and we'll get into those numbers when we get into Deacon. But let's start with Jay Higgins and Joe Evans, 2 guys who were voted captains right from the get-go. Logan Lee then stepped in as a captain now and has made like 38 straight starts now, basically 3 solid years of starts. But let's talk about Jay Higgins and Joe Evans, 2 guys who were voted captains. Jay coming in from Indy, played very sparingly on that 21 squad that went to Indy, his hometown, and lost. Now he's the team captain for that. Joe, we've recapped his strange, wild trip of 6 years from walk-on in Ames, getting tossed around by guys in the NFL, to now being a leader of this team, an emotional leader. And boy, maybe the Joe Evans game yesterday, he was anywhere and everywhere with the safety and the pass breakups. And boy, what a ride for 2 guys, one from Indy, one from Central Iowa, and now going back to Indianapolis, and to ask them just about what it's like to now be captains of their own Big Ten West champion team.
You're a team captain this year and leading a team that won the West Division. What does that mean to you compared to 21?
Yeah, it was one of my biggest goals this offseason was just being the team captain. And, just knowing that it's voted by the players, that means the world to me. And I remember that feeling last time we were at the Big Ten Championship, and I remember that whole process and traveling to Indy and how the lights are really bright in there, and it's a bigger stage and all that. And I don't know. I told myself I'd come back, and kind of cliche, but it happened. So I'm excited for the team, excited for the opportunity.
You had a heck of a year in 21 when that team won the West. You're the captain of the 2023 Big Ten West champions. What does that mean? He was a walk-on from Ames who had to hold T.J. Hawkinson for 20 yards in practice to get your welcome to the program.
Yeah, and worse too. Just yeah. That it means the world to me. So I sat down and I was just talking to Coach Braithwaite, and we were getting teary-eyed in there. I told Coach Braithwaite that before the game I couldn't really stand by him just because how much he's meant to me. But I had a long conversation on whether I come back or not. And, I remember going into Coach Braithwaite's office, and we sat there, and I probably went in there about 5 times, at least 5 times. And we just had these conversations on whether I come back or not. And to be able to come back, and my number one goal was to be a team captain. And I shared that with Coach Braithwaite. I shared that with my parents. I shared that with Coach Ferentz. And for me, that's earned and not given. And so being able to be a team captain and being able to, be a Big Ten West champion, it feels so good. It feels so good. And like I said in the interviews, I think I said that being a team captain is my biggest accomplishment here and my biggest accomplishment of my life. And that's the damn truth. Just being able to be out there and lead the guys and, lead a team that's battled through so much adversity. Kind of just thinking to myself, like, I'm a walk-on. I'm not supposed to be here. And just this team's battled through so much. I battled through so much. And just being able to lead them out on the field and lead them to a Big Ten West championship is something that, I'll be talking about for the rest of my life.
This team was built around defense from the beginning. All the talk about what the offense wasn't doing, what the defense was doing, thought it was very poignant and a reminder of the people within this program that Phil Parker was emotional as he was in the video the program shared of him telling the locker room that Kirk has surpassed Bo Schembechler for Big Ten career wins, and the tears and the hug there. Sometimes on social media it's, boy, how does Phil put up with Kirk and having to deal with this offense not doing anything and all that? Well, they're friends. They're the best of friends. They probably look at each other as family, and so does this defense. You just feel the love between these guys, and you hear the emotion in Joe Evans' voice. Joe, do not for a minute think as a walk-on you're not supposed to be here, man. There are a few guys that maybe have belonged more in black and gold than him. Nick Jackson coming in from Virginia, he had a fantastic game. Jamari Harris, Gary Kerner, Jack's dad, posted this morning watching film, thought it was Jamari's best game. I'd be tough-pressed to argue that. Might have something to do with that new grad assistant they've got in the DB room, Jack.
Oh, yeah. And, those guys were bound to, both him and I thought Deshaun looked pretty
Deshaun
good
was
for so much.
fantastic.
Yes,
Almost had a pick there on one of those first He had a couple
two
shots.
near picks. I
He had
mean,
a couple shots. He
one
was
that probably should have been a pick, quite honestly. But
Seb Castro almost had a pick on one. Seb had
went through his hands, I think, and bounced off his helmet.
Seb had that great 3rd and 1 where Paddock tries to run to the pile and rolls out, and Seb, as Seb does, just gets one fingernail on a shoestring and gets. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, and they were. I mean, they were bound to get tested yesterday. You knew those guys were going to get attacked with Cooper out of there. They were going to really throw the ball around a ton, and they rose to the occasion for sure. That not a perfect game, I wouldn't say, but they showed up when exactly they needed to.
It felt like every single player. Jay's probably like the 5th player we're talking about yesterday, and all Jay did was just typical Jay Higgins stuff.
12 tackles.
Yeah, just. But Quinn Schulte had a couple big hits. He had that one that broke up a pass on, I think, on your side of the field. Xavier Wampet was on a first down catch for Illinois, but he smacked a dude. And we talked about Xavier maybe not having the numbers people were. People have wild expectations about numbers of they measure it in interceptions and things like that. Like, this is a defense that plays so well that doesn't get burned over the top, that those safeties don't get crazy pass coverage numbers all the time. But he looked real steady out there. And then Aaron Graves was in. We talked about Logan Lee had a couple really nice wraps. Deontay Craig was in there. We talked about YA. Boy, this defense has stars, but all 11, it doesn't seem to matter what 11 are out there more often than not. The standard is the standard, and in a season where they needed that defense to really be great, sure, the sexy measurables weren't there, but all they were was as stout and as strong as any defense in recent memory, it felt like.
And they got some points on the board yesterday.
They got points on the board.
I was telling Mitch Owen that
you guys both had safety dreams.
I came I was with some friends, and we got into the stadium a little later, and we were in the concourse area, and we just hear a huge roar, and we're like, maybe they got a safety. And we walk out, it's like, oh, it's 2-0. They did. We were joking. Of course they got a safety.
Yeah.
Iowa.
Did Mitch tell you about the dream I had earlier?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. I was like, I don't know. I was kind of in night sweats about what this dream was going to mean. But yeah, like Thursday night or something, I had a dream that the game ended in a 2-0 final, with Iowa losing because Torrey Taylor got hurt, and for whatever reason, Kirk decided to call somebody out of the stands that just claimed to be a punter, and so brought him onto the field to be the punter. I mean, dreams don't have to make sense.
Yeah.
And it turned out afterwards this person never punted a ball in their life, and so they went out to punt, and they punted it backwards, and it went out of their own end zone, and so Illinois got a safety, and that was the final score. Anyway, so when the safety came on the board, I'm like, okay, what is happening?
Iowa football, they were gonna.
You're kind of like Nostradamus, because last game, right before Quinn Schulte's interception, he turns to me and goes, I feel an interception this next play. So then we probably did an unprofessional thing where after the interception, I gave him a high five. Not because the Hawkeyes did good. It's because wow, you predicted that.
Well, I was telling him, and I just hit record on the final knee, and then we ran out around the field and got shots of Kirk and Brett shaking hands and all that. And I ran into Quinn, who obviously I've known for a little while, and we lock eyes. He's like, hey, brother. And just, you see the camera kind of fall down. We go quick dap up there. So that was a cool moment for Quinn out there. I told him kind of in the same vein that you predicted your interception. I told Owen probably 45 minutes before the game, I was like, I think Caden Weegen's going to have a big play today. I was like, I don't know what it is. I trust Deshaun. I think everyone knows, we've seen what he did against Utah State and Iowa State. I think he's going to be fine. Nobody's really talking about Caden. I think he's going to have some plays. I think he's going to do something big. And then he immediately has a punt go over his head, and there's a kickoff issue there. And then I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, man, just catch
done,
Mitch. Just do it. And then, sure enough,
I was certain
big as 17 yards as you could ask for.
I was certain that he had just fair catch it, the coaches.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that wasn't the case. I'm sure they got, LeVar seems to have trust in all the players that are out there, so it's good that. But you've seen it before, maybe 3 or 4, maybe before LeVar was special teams coordinator, where for whatever reason, whoever the punt returners back there, this is in 2018, would let it roll or not catch it, and it would just drive me crazy because, those are the, hidden yardage that you lose. And with an offense who struggles to move sometimes, those yards come up big. And obviously that Weegen play in the second half, set up the touchdown. So it's
And he got the last 5 or 6 yards pretty tough. I mean, he got hit and kept going.
That was so crucial yesterday because that was there were so many times in the second half where I would just I was just putting my head in my hands because it's this team that normally what they do so well is flipping the field and controlling the field position, and that just wasn't happening yesterday because there were some plays where Cooper's absence was evident on a lot of punts because there were some balls that like probably could have been down inside the 10, and
John Nestor just missed
somebody
one.
just didn't get it down there in time, so it ended up being a touchback. Or they gave up maybe a couple more first downs than they normally do. So instead of Illinois being at the 20 and having to punt it away, they're at the 40. And so and so it's like they just couldn't quite win that field position battle until that final half of the fourth quarter.
It was a big play, and then of course Caleb Johnson was the hero on that final drive to get the score and run. We'll talk about him in a bit. We're going to take a break, though, and talk about the incredible progress that we've seen from Deacon Hill over the last few games, really since the bye. So we'll talk about that after this.
Bauman's has been selling quality clothing for over 100 years. We carry a wide selection of men's and women's clothing. We recently expanded to offer a great selection of shoes and accessories. We have the area's best selection of both big and tall and can outfit anyone from the farm to the office to a casual night on the town. Bauman's is a proud family-owned business, and we're excited to continue the tradition of quality clothing and unmatched customer service since 1909. Visit us for all your clothing needs.
So, for those that forget, Deacon Hill was not meant to be the starting quarterback of the Iowa Hawkeyes this year. Cade McNamara goes down against Michigan State. Deacon Hill, who really hadn't played live football since a shortened COVID year in high school, gets thrown into the mix and threw it high and hard a lot. And again, keeps it out of danger, but it's not going to keep the chains moving. He has really come on since the bye week, and we'll look at his numbers before and after that. But Deacon Hill, less than a year ago, was working out at the Public Rec Center in Madison away from the Badgers football team, just finding the right times to get in and get his workouts in. Takes a flyer on Iowa after maybe thinking about it or was going to go to Fordham, and now here he is, the quarterback of the Big Ten West champions. I asked him about that journey after the game.
It's been crazy, unreal, from working out in the basement of the rec center at Wisconsin to, being able to be a quarterback here for one of the best teams. But, yeah, just super grateful. I think that's the word I would use the most to describe it, is just I couldn't be happier to be here.
It's just been amazing just seeing him progress, because he was at Wisconsin last year, so he didn't really get a lot of playing time, and here he wasn't going to get a lot of playing time when he first came here. So for Cade to get hurt, it's kind of a devastating moment, but it was an upsetting moment for him. So he come in and show what he can do. So I believe that when he's been in the backfield, he's been showing a lot of progression, and I can see that he loves football, and he be in the rooms every day, all day, asking coach what he can do to get it better. So I believe in him completely now. He's doing his thing now. So.
And then Deacon, again, he gets thrust in there and really doesn't have a lot of experience. You start doing the research, it's like, okay. But he's so improved even when he started playing, whatever it's been, 6-7 weeks ago, compared to where he was in August. He had improved, and we've seen improvement. And he made some big plays today. He hit some that weren't so good, maybe, but he made some big plays today, including the run. So you got to give him a lot of credit.
We talked about this. You can't microwave success. That was progress and experience. That's what Kirk said, I believe, after the win last week. The Deacon Hill stew is starting to come together, though. You see the numbers there. 4 games before the bye as QB1. Comes in against Michigan State, plays against Purdue, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. I think we had this number during the bye week or on that Sunday recap after Minnesota. 33 for 90. 36.7% completion percentage. We noted at the time that's probably not ideal. In 3 games since the bye, Northwestern, Rutgers, and Illinois, 49 for 75, which is over 65% completion percentage. And that hasn't been like a 50% completion percentage game and an 80%. That's been 10 of 15 against Northwestern, 20 of 31 against Rutgers, 19 of 29 yesterday. I don't know. Again, it's a small sample size in the grand scheme of things, 3 games, but it's half of his starting career now. Do you guys feel like it's clicked, or is this too small of a sample size for you? Matt Benson, who went to Iowa, and I'm not sure what he does for a living now, but he's always got some good numbers out there. And I wondered this, too, of when the last time Iowa had a quarterback with 3 straight games of completing 64, 65% of their throws. It was actually Spencer 2 years ago, so it wasn't that far along. But in the Kirk Ferentz era, it's been Deacon, Spencer in 21, Stanzi in all wins, 3 straight wins. Stanzi in 2010, Kyle McCann in 2001. That's it.
Wow.
Now there's a bigger discussion about that, and we'll save for another podcast some other time.
That's amazing. Brad Banks isn't in that. Just a side note.
I mean, I never thought his
CJ.
I don't think CJ.
But they were like efficient in numbers. It wasn't like
wild though.
a lot.
They scored points.
Yeah,
picked up a lot
more
of yards.
explosive plays and stuff like that. But it's, I mean, what do you guys think? Has he turned the corner? Are you building faith in this kid as he gets more experience? The microwave's off, but the stew's cooking.
I'm more confident when he's out there than I was just the Minnesota game, Northwestern game too. Even like I know there was.
He only threw for 37 yards or whatever.
Yeah, it was a 10 for 15, but it wasn't like he didn't.
A lot of 1 yard.
Wow, sense that I feel like that Caleb Brown throw. I mean, that's an easy one to kind of encompass and look at because it's the first one for him. Caleb in this stretch to 11 catches for 121 yards and a touchdown. Addison Estranga, 16 catches for 86 yards. He's just getting 5-yard pops there. Nico's got 10 catches in the last 3 games too. He's really been. I mean, those 3 have kind of been the triforce for Deacon Hill there.
Big one too. Yesterday, no interceptions, and no fumbles. Right? He didn't.
He had the one where
that's right.
I don't know how this wasn't ruled an incomplete pass. I felt his arm was going forward. Granted, I'm just looking up the jumbotron. But.
No, I thought it.
was first down.
I thought the ball slipped
Seth
out.
Anderson
and
with a heck of a play to.
Yeah.
Seth Anderson with that fumble recovery was.
I also didn't think you could recover a fumble forward, but that's I guess a discussion for another day.
There's some rule about that where it's like, because they want to avoid people like intentionally fumbling forward for their teammate, where, this was very clearly like forced by the opponent. So maybe it's like since the opponent was the last person to touch the ball, then it can be fumbled forward. I don't know for sure that's a rule, but I think it's maybe something.
I still don't know what roughing the passer is. So.
That was some baloney.
This is easier for a commentator to say or me to say, but I think it's all because it looks like and I don't think Quinn did this on purpose. It looks in fast, like if you see it once, it looks like he drives it in. It wasn't late, obviously, because the ball was still in his hands.
Sorry the kid hits hard. He's a walk-on from Cedar Rapids, the son of a coach.
Yeah.
What do you want?
To speak to Deacon, I for sure have way more faith because even yesterday, even though, they got 2 touchdowns out of the day, good for an Iowa offense. Even though it wasn't the craziest offensive game, they still had enough drives that they were getting first downs and they were moving the ball downfield, just not quite enough, but they were moving the ball. I'm already making a pronouncement that I'm not coming out and thinking that Deacon Hill is going to lead this team to a win in Indianapolis. I think that this team is still a long way from being ready to pull off something like that against Michigan or Ohio State. But in terms of can this guy win us a game next week in Lincoln, and can he win us a bowl game? I think so. I think he can at least do enough. He's not the guy winning us the game, but in terms of what Iowa needs out of a quarterback, I think he's got exactly that. I think he has what it takes to manage the game just well enough.
He's doing against 3 pretty darn good defense, particularly Rutgers, having this success. That's encouraging too, I feel like.
That is encouraging. The only not encouraging thing is, you just go in the middle of the game, there's 6 drives that end in punts.
Yeah.
And
took some sacks there. And again, that Illinois got tackles.
Yeah. If they can't do that against a team like Ohio State or Michigan who's going to score in bunches, even against a good defense as Iowa. So it almost reminds me of the basketball team where they sometimes go 5 minutes without scoring a basket, and then Creighton builds a big lead.
Yeah.
When you play really good teams, that's going to happen. So during the middle of that game, I was like, come on, you can't move the ball. And it seemed like Illinois was only going single high man, and it's you can't get a receiver to get separation and throw them out of that man coverage because they were stacking the box too. And but then Caleb broke one, so it's
the one thing that I would like to see Deacon take another step forward in is that I love and I credit that they're trying some deep balls. They're having him throw some 30, 40-yard passes. I have not seen one connect yet. There have been a couple of passes to Nico that he's trying to go long to the end zone, and they're just the timing's still a bit off on those deep balls, and I'd love to see a couple more of those hit each game. If they can hit even 2 of those a game, that's a huge difference maker for that offense.
I'd still like to see one. We're still thinking about the one that Cade just overthrew to Seth and Ames.
Oh,
yeah. It would have been a 91-yarder or whatever it was. And that was first pass of the season was that route to Seth. I'm surprised they haven't gotten him out more. Not that they haven't tried, but I think that's one of those plays, too, that maybe people were expecting a little more of. Seth was going to stretch a little bit just because he has a little bit more speed. But
Well, I wonder if that long pass to, I think it was Caleb Brown.
down.
It was pass interference. I wonder if that's completed if he doesn't get bumped. And that's another reason that you want to take shots, because the one thing
against
Deacon,
Northwestern saw a lot of success with the early PIs.
when they're playing bump and run man coverage like they are, they're handsy. So if you throw it over top and it's a overthrow because he wasn't going to catch that once he got bumped, but we still got a first down out of it. So that's another aspect of going, taking chances downfield is you can get those plays too.
But of course, if you break a 30-yard run for a touchdown, that works too. And that was the case for Caleb Johnson 14 days ago at Wrigley. That was the conversation that kind of started rising up in a group text I have, and I think we talked about it too, of like, did Caleb Johnson play? What's wrong? What happened to Caleb Johnson? Is he okay? What's going on? Caleb Johnson is still here, folks, and it's been a weird 2 weeks for him, but he's stayed the course, and it looks like it's paid off.
2 weeks ago, you don't get a snap at Wrigley. Today, you have the touchdown that wins the West. What's the last 14 days been like?
Just me just focusing on the little things and just grinding it out, being patient. Because I know it's something like this always going to come up, so I just got to be patient. And when my time comes, just take opportunity and use it to my full advantage. So
Simple as that. Patience pays off. Were you guys expecting Caleb Johnson to be the hero that helps win the West? We've seen Le'Shawn have breakout games. We've seen Jazz have his games. Boy, there was all the hype about Kamari Moulton against Western Michigan. It looks like him and T.J. Washington's been banged up too, but it looks like Kamari will probably redshirt. I think he's only played in 3 games, but boy, it's been, as it has been, aside from, Tyler Goodson, I guess Mekhi Sargent was in there as well for Iowa, but it's never just one guy, but boy, what a 2-week stretch for Caleb Johnson.
Yeah. I would not have guessed that based on even the first 3 quarters of that game, because
Sure.
I mean, he hardly got a carry in the first quarter. It was
I think he got a couple carries. They
a lot of Jazz, a lot of Le'Shawn.
yeah, credit to
You got the big run to get the first down too, right? That was a good one too.
Illinois, they just won a lot of one-on-one ball carrier, meeting a tackler, and I think that was a lot of the leading to those 1-yard, 2-yard gains on first down. It looked like the blocks were well. It's just there's a guy right there, and it's up to the running back to beat him, and wasn't happening. They were wrapping up really well. But yeah, it's when they needed a run, boy, they got it. It was something special there.
I mean, I don't know, this is maybe a weird time to bring this up, but I think it's going to be worth a discussion now or later, because there was some discussion prior to this game, like, is Caleb going to be on this team next year? He seemed like a likely option for a guy to hit the transfer portal. But again, all 3 of these running backs keep having games where they come out and somebody does well and then somebody doesn't do as well, and then the next game it's the other guy. And it's like, will they be able to keep all 3 of these running backs on the roster next year, or do you guys think that one of these guys is going to go find somewhere else to go?
I never know if the foundation of those questions is just based on what we know about how NIL works and how things can shift so quickly for players nowadays. Mm-hmm. I feel like, and there are examples, Jewel Hampton transferring to Southern Illinois, and that's the biggest one I could think of. Brandon Wager transferred away from Iowa, obviously. But I feel like more often than not, Iowa's kept a lot of guys around, and they just accept that it's a bit of a committee. I remember, I think this was going into the 2020 season. I asked Ivory Kelly Martin, maybe he was 21. He was a 5th-year guy. I said, hey, it's a crowded running back room, and you're probably good enough to, if you wanted to, go somewhere and go be the guy somewhere. I asked why, and he goes, I just love this program. And I was reminded of that sentiment of guys not playing a lot but just wanting to be a part of this. Dejon Parker, very quickly after the game, tweeted something out along the lines of, best decision of my life. A kid that we talked about transferring in from Saginaw Valley State, they were like, hey, he'll plug in and be on that line right away, and he's going to elevate everything. He's rarely played this year. And still that kid with that attitude in a season where he could be like, boy, I'm not getting my touches. I'm not getting my reps. he's part of the Big Ten West champions. So I wonder if that factors in for Caleb too, if him and Leishon and Jazz, Kamari and TJ, all those guys, if they're like, hey, like, we'll get our carries when we get our carries, and I'm sure Liddell Betts does a great job keeping those guys humble and hungry. But I wonder if that keeps that running back room together. But again, to your point, like, guys can go find their next adventures a little more easily and a little more lucratively than they used to.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't hold it against him. I mean, earlier in the season, I can't remember if it was Kamari who said it after his game against Western, where the running back room thinks that, or has the belief that they can all eat. Like there's food at the table for everyone. Looking at the stats this year, LaShawn leads with 668 yards. All three of the top combined, it's over 1,200 yards. But a guy like Jazz Patterson, who I think could be, if need be a feature back, only has 191 rushing yards. I only say only, but you could see him being
wild though.
Yeah,
he runs
right.
So hard.
He runs so hard.
Like every time he runs for like 4 yards, like he hurts somebody.
Yeah, I know. So I guess I wouldn't hold it against anyone who, if they thought like, man, I could, for another program, we didn't have this many good running backs, I could go out there and be a lead back.
Yeah.
But it seems like they all think that they can, prosper here and all eat.
And there's been a few that have transferred out, like, bless you, 'tis the season. After not playing, like Samson Evans is a great example, who I think is like Eastern Michigan's all-time leading rusher, like leads them in rushing touchdowns. He was a kid that was in Iowa City for a year, didn't play, goes there and has success. But I feel like more often than not, they keep, when it was Goodson and Ivory and Torrin Young, I mean, that room stayed together. In 15, it was Canzeri and Wadley, and I'm thinking there was somebody else there too. Derek Mitchell, the late Derek Mitchell, was part of that as well.
It's like they all just get enough of a taste of
sure.
glory that it's enough to keep them around. I mean, and Caleb, again, it's like last night, he really gets to soak in being the hero of Iowa City, and a guy that everybody's going to now be talking about as a guy who secured them the Big Ten West. And even if I think that was his third rushing touchdown of the year, so it's not like he has a bunch, I believe.
Yeah, and I think they've all been long ones too, right?
He's got the most on the team. He leads the team in rushing touchdowns with 3. And so it's like everybody kind of gets their chance to be in the spotlight for a moment, and that's enough to say like, hey, this is a pretty good spot. And I kind of like
LaShawn only has one touchdown, that one against Wisconsin. I guess he has a receiving touchdown too.
Yeah, against Western had the screen pass.
Yeah, Caleb and Jazz and Kamari both have 2.
Yeah.
So
Kamari had his 2 against Western. Jazz had Iowa State and Rutgers.
No, he scored last week against Rutgers.
Yeah, that short one.
Well, so Caleb Johnson gets to walk out the hero, and there's another guy who walked out of Kinnick one last time as a champion. And what a scene that was. We'll talk about the final game at Kinnick for Brian Ferentz after the break.
Better sleep means better morning. Start your morning waking up on a Restonic mattress. At Corcoran Furniture, we are Delaware County's largest Restonic mattress dealer. We have great prices on Ashley Furniture and the largest selection of Restonic mattresses, featuring the Marvelous Middle, giving you more support where you need it so you can sleep soundly. And it's made for you right here in Iowa. So if it's a crossword, coffee, or the morning news, let Corcoran Furniture help you start your morning off right. Visit Corcoran Furniture in Manchester or shop online at CorcoranFurnitureManchester.com.
It is the end of the Brian Ferentz era. This last few games, these last 3 games now, Iowa guaranteed 3 final games as they wrap up at Nebraska, then the Big Ten title game, and then a bowl game. And so that's how Brian Ferentz's career will end. This was the last time he walked out of Kinnick as a member of the coaching staff, and as it's been for most of the last few years, offense had moments of pulling your hair, but when it counted, as we've seen more often than not, they figure out a way. Kirk Ferentz and Deacon Hill talking about the end of Brian's time as OC and walking out of Kinnick as a Big Ten West champ.
Yeah. So we had senior day today, and then also, his last day here. So there's some sentimental value to that, certainly. And so just glad it turned out the way it did. I'm just really proud of him. He's been just really, I think, admirable in the way he's handled a very tough situation. And I'm not quite sure I know how he's done it, but I really am proud of him as a dad. And, can't say enough about that, but I do try to keep things separate. And I'm really proud of him as a head coach, too. And again, I think we've got a great staff here of guys that just, care about the right things.
It's awesome. The way things are, it's his last game here in Kinnick, but I couldn't be happier for the guy. I haven't been this grateful in a while to play for a coach in my life, and I'm extremely grateful to play for him. I love that guy to death. He puts me in some good spots. He's taught me a lot so far. So.
There was a heck of a moment there right before the final knee where Brian and Kirk got to embrace on the field. I think we've got a shot of that. But Brian gets a Gatorade bath and gets this moment. And we were just talking. I don't know if I've ever heard, and I don't think he means this as crass, and that's a great sign there. I've never heard Kirk refer to himself as dad until that moment where he said, "I'm very proud as a dad." And Kirk's very dry humor, we talked about it in that first presser after the announcement that Brian wasn't going to be back, of, we have a biological connection. I'm very fond of him. And then there says, oh yeah, it was senior day and also that, so there's a sentimental element there. Like, that's Kirk just trying to be as light as possible. Yeah. And I can't fathom him being a dad, watching your son, and he's seen his son go through some awful nightmares and then have to go through a public firing, and I can't imagine the pride he must have. And he said it, I don't know if it was in that bite or another bite, of just, I don't know how he's been able to, him talking about Brian, of just handling it. I think part of it is Brian's his father's son, and feel like they are very good at compartmentalizing things and just kind of moving on. But boy, what a moment. And there's been a lot of sentiment, it feels like. I don't know how much you guys have looked on social media of people just being like, it's like the end of every like cliche sports movie, just like, yeah, it wasn't so bad after all. Like, kind of that sentiment. I mean, they're like, yeah, there needed to be a change, but hey, like, that's pretty neat.
That's not what I was hearing in the crowd yesterday. But
I was just going to say, I felt like the last two games, like, there were no chance or anything.
There weren't any chance, but like, I've been to two games as fans, and just
they're saying
people,
Coop. They were wondering why Coop.
Yeah, behind me are just, every time there's a bad play or a 3-and-out, that's what Brian, just stuff like that.
They'll be doing that in 2029, man. Yeah. Oh, we run a Brian Ferentz offense? Like, Greg Davis, he come back? Like,
yeah, I have mixed feelings about it. I'm glad he went out a winner, and, I have fond memories, to use that phrase again, of him playing back in, that was one of the first teams that I really watched as a fan growing up, and just happy as well that we get to move forward and hopefully evolve offensively, because they're 9-2. We should be proud of that. We should, as fans, be excited to go to another Big Ten title game. At the same time, if I say it every week, this Illinois defense gave up 45 points to Indiana. It was not like the greatest. So with a better offensive plan, maybe it wouldn't be that dramatic at the end. You know what I mean?
All things considered, it couldn't have ended better for Brian to be able to go out as a Big Ten West champion. And I don't often focus on like watching him after a game or seeing him leave the field, but he was very joyful. I mean, he was filled with a lot of joy after that game, and it was great to see that.
And his players were so happy for him.
I mean, there's just it needed to be done. He needed to.
I think you can be happy for him, and I think he's going to land on his feet, get a O-line job somewhere, and he sounds like a hell of a coach. Just didn't work out as a play caller, which is all.
It was really interesting to go and see, so I went up there for the Hawk Walk before the game and just snapped a few pictures and videos and stuff of him walking into the game one last time, and his whole family. I guess I don't know his family situation, how many kids he has, or there's a very large gathering of a wife and a bunch of kids around there. I don't know if those were all his kids or there's some nieces and nephews in there or something too, but a big group of people there, and a lot of those kids were crying. Knowing that was going to be their last time getting a chance to experience that at Kinnick, unless they go for their grandpa, for Kirk. But it's hard to see that family element come into play, where it's like you know that the social scrutiny that comes to Brian absolutely reaches the rest of that family too. There's no way that they can avoid hearing some of the things that are said about their dad, and it's hard to cope with that, just knowing that he's a dad and he's probably a pretty decent person as well. But also knowing that like a change need to be made. It's hard it's hard to think about all the things that they've had to go through during this time.
Yeah, I went to Hawk Walk, or is that what's called? Hawk Walk?
Hawk Walk.
That sounded wrong coming out of my mouth. But I went there last week for the Rutgers game, and I saw his wife and kids sitting there too. And he almost made a Kirk Ferentz comment. He goes, "Oh, they let you in, huh?" It's like, which I'm like, that sounds like a Kirk Ferentz, yeah.
It's you see it in movies all the time of just how tough being a coach can be on a family, whether it's the for sale signs in the yard, and I know guys that have gone through that and have had really rough stints where stuff like that happens. And again, just the reminders of human beings, they're going home and just trying to raise their kids the best way they can. They're trying to be a good companion to their spouse. And going back to what Kirk said, man, how do you handle and able to keep that to the side, all the crap you've heard about yourself all over? Because even if he's not online, he walks into the stadium for the better part of the last 3 years and hears boos anytime his unit doesn't do something exactly right, and then the chants with your name.
Yeah.
That break people.
Yeah. I mean, just think about that.
Destroy people.
Thinking about being his son who, guessing as a guy who's only had nieces and nephews, but a son who's maybe 8 to 10 years old, being in the stadium and hearing thousands of people chant, "Fire my dad." That's hard.
Yeah.
I hate thinking about that.
Yeah. So
Be better, Iowa fans.
Yeah, there's no good segue.
Myself
out of this.
included.
Brian, wherever you end up, you're going to be great.
I got a transition.
16 years on. Oh, sorry. What's that?
I got a transition if you want one.
Okay. I was just going to say.
You're just going to do the horn.
They did the math of 16 years on the Iowa sideline as either a player or coach, and that's a lot of Hawkeye service over the years.
He's got black and gold running through his veins for a cliche.
Does he have a tattoo like the Brett Bielema apparently has?
Unreported. I was close to Illinois, and I sideline, and I was like, "Let's see the Tiger Hawk, Brett."
What'd you call him, Brett? Bert?
Yeah.
Oh, Mike is a fan first sometimes.
Speaking of someone, maybe we should be chanting "Fire Owen" with these picks.
Oh,
Ooh,
I thought I was doing so well yesterday.
Look at Mitch go above 500. We're turning
So many
it all
close ones,
with
I feel like,
1 week.
Right. Just to recap for the audience, we all missed on Michigan because they only won by 7. The spread was 19.5.
Boy, I shouldn't have gave up on Maryland. I was on Maryland for 2.5 months.
Penn State covered the 20 points.
Was that a 21-point finish too?
No, I think it was 20. Oh yeah, it was 21.
27-6. That one frustrates the hell out of me because that was
fine.
Close for the entire game.
Rutgers has had a couple, haven't they, where they've just let it go at the. That happened against Ohio State, didn't it?
Yeah.
Guess who picked Ohio State to cover that game? Whatever one I picked it right.
We all had Indiana covering 4 points. They lost straight up to Michigan State at home, which was kind of a surprising result. Michigan State, has been struggling of late. Purdue lost to Northwestern.
Are you sure I picked Purdue to win that game?
I mean,
I'm going to check the replay on that.
I write them as you say them.
Bowl eligible Northwestern. We haven't even talked. We talked a bit about earlier, but Kirk Ferentz probably Big Ten Coach of the Year, or maybe the front runner for it. David Braun, man, give him some sort of special recognition. Big Ten.
This seems silly, but do you think it counts if they get to 10 wins? Like a 10-win season is so much different than a 9 wins in my little brain head.
Well, my little brain head did the same thing back in. We're forever going to call our inner monologues now little brain head. I remember asking DJK about that in 2009 after they beat Minnesota to go 10-2, and I asked him. I was like, "This sounds weird. Does 10 wins feel like a bigger deal than just 9?" He's like, "Yeah, it's double digits. That's a big."
Yep,
I think
plateau.
Yeah, I
it's
think
like 100 wins in baseball.
Minnesota, I know they went 11-2 in 2019. They went 10-3 in 2003. Those are the only 2 times this century they had. They hadn't had, I think their other 2 10-win seasons were something like 1907 or 8.
I didn't know they played 10 games back then. I was going to say, did
those are
they
the few
ever
times
do
they
it?
did. Yeah, I think it just reminds you of, even though you see it more and more, and obviously the best teams in the country are going 11-1, 12-0, 13-0.
Soon to be like 18-0 with the playoff.
10 is a big deal. If you can get in double digits when you're playing 14, 15 games a year, or even 12 or 13, that's a big deal.
I don't know if there's a chance of, I have to look at it, if they get 10 wins, lose a close one in the Big Ten title game, if they have an outside shot at New Year's 6, I'd probably say I I don't know. They'd be choosing over Iowa and Penn State, I think, at 10-2.
Here's the thing that'll really mess with people's heads. Are you a Cooper DeJean left arm away from, if they win the Big Ten title in Indy, being a playoff team?
CFP.
They'd be 12-1. They'd be Big Ten champs with a win over one of the top 3 teams, and their only loss is to a Penn State team that would be 10th or 11th maybe in the rankings.
I mean, you probably would. Just depends on, Washington undefeated.
Florida State just lost Jordan Travis. Florida State might lose.
Oh, they did? I missed that.
Yeah.
Damn, that sucks for them.
That's a big loss. And he was playing great.
It's
wild though. I mean, that's football.
To be honest, if if I were casting a vote for Big Ten Coach of the Year, mine would go to Braun. I mean, as much as
he's been incredible.
Knowing the inner workings of this Iowa program, I mean, I know that what Kirk has done has been amazing. This Northwestern team, I feel like, has to go down in the Northwestern history books for what they've accomplished this year after a 1-win season, off-season turmoil, first-year head coach. First time he's been a head coach, right, David Braun? And he leads them to a bowl game.
He was a DC at North Dakota State less than a year ago.
What he's done there cannot be fathomed. I really hope that David Braun wins Big Ten Coach.
I thought I was going on a limb. I was like, yeah, I think they'll be better than people think. I think they'll be 4-8. They might do if they win next week against Illinois, they'll be 7-5 after everything they just went through.
They could do it too.
If they beat Iowa, they could be in the driver's seat for the Big Ten West spot in the Big Ten title game. I mean, they're a Drew Stevens field goal possibly away from that.
Yeah. Hats off to
Drew Stevens. His blocked extra point is the only thing that gave me the win on that Illinois cover, because it would have been a push.
Stop betting on this team.
That.
Well, no, I'm just saying
In these he's talking about.
He's the only one who actually uses his picks, guys. Just keep that in mind.
I actually won a parlay, not to bog us down, but Louisville was a dog against Miami. They won by 7, and I paired that up with the Northwestern straight up. So
Louisville's 10-1.
That's wild.
Braum going into the alma mater and having a lot of success. Yeah. So I'm 10 games under. That feels good. Boy, that feels real good going into the final week of the year. By the way, did you see who started for Nebraska at quarterback yesterday?
I did not.
Chubba Purdy.
Really? Let's see.
Brother of Brock. Had a 55-yard touchdown run.
There's a kid I used to cover in Sioux City who's a backup quarterback there in Nebraska, Luke Longval.
I'd rather see Sims play, to be honest, just a walking turnover.
All 3 of those guys can run.
Yeah.
And, boy, we'll see. I think Nebraska needs to win to get to 6-6, right?
Mm-hmm. 2 questions.
Iowa's a 1.5 favorite. The over-under is 27.5. For those playing at home, that continues to get lower.
Is that the new all-time low now?
That would be, I believe, the all-time low.
2 questions before we wrap up. Were you surprised that just with the factor that Oldmeyer could run better, that we never saw him at all yesterday? I know he's more turnover prone, and I get Iowa is usually a ball hawk.
I'm wondering if once Cooper gets knocked out, they're like, okay, well, the pass is where we're going to have success. John's been riding a hot streak. We're just going to go with him. Again, I was surprised to see his stat line was under 50% completion, because it felt like he just
especially considering what Iowa did the previous week to Gavin Wimsatt and Kyle Monangai. Like, I mean, they just went nowhere, and so they're like,
Love had a couple nice runs, though.
Yeah, in the second half, they started to open it up.
Yeah.
My second question to you guys early, let's be the first podcast to talk about it. Maybe not the first. Who would you rather have, Michigan or Ohio State?
I think we already talked about this, didn't we? We absolutely did.
Today?
On this podcast?
I think Wednesday, yeah.
Oh, on Wednesday.
Maybe we're off air.
But now that we're totally and 100% confirmed in the Big Ten title game, who are you going to root for? Because the game is this week on Saturday.
I think, again, I can't remember if this was on air or off, talked about I would want Ohio State because J.J. McCarthy, crocodile sign eating greater than Kyle McCord. Did you guys learn about greater than and less than and have the crocodile analogy?
Eating them, yeah.
I was 7. See, I retained it. I think
I agree with you.
JJ would just be the tougher weapon to stop for the Iowa defense. Not that Iowa's defense has run into a weapon they can't stop yet, but I think that would be the bigger challenge.
If Cooper was here, I'd be way more in my conviction of that, just because Marvin Harrison is a beast.
Yeah.
I would love to see Jamari up against him. I think that'd be fun. I think Jamari's up for it.
I think Blake Hornstein tweeted out a video that Torrey Taylor picked J.J. McCarthy as his Heisman favorite right now. He's like, I don't really follow much else in football, but he was like, I think he's been having a good year, J.J. has, so he'd be my pick.
He's not wrong.
But, yeah, I don't know. The advantage maybe of playing Michigan is that you have two guys on the roster who could give you a little bit of inside knowledge of that.
Some signs, maybe?
Connor's coming over.
Cade Stallions.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a guy? There was a guy that you got a shot of in the crowd yesterday that had a block M on the shirt, and I don't know if it's sold by some bookstore in Ann Arbor. What did it say exactly?
I'm just here to steal the signs or something like that. Yeah.
LOL.
Yeah, actually, I then saw he had like a daughter with him who was wearing the same shirt, and I was like, oh, that would have been a better picture for Connor Stelling's disguise.
I will say Michigan too. They'd be coming in getting Harbaugh back because he's only suspended for the regular season, and so
yeah,
that'd be
they're motivated.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
not that Ohio State wouldn't be, but yeah, boy, Marvin would just eat our lunch. I feel like if we play against Ohio State.
DBU, man.
I don't know.
There hasn't been a receiver that's
8
8 against him yet.
Matchup.
I mean,
The
hey,
best receiver in the country, though.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable.
Should be in the Heisman consideration.
Definitely top 3 Heisman should be.
I don't think he is, but
Really?
the last one I saw were it was a social media post from the Heisman. It was all 4 quarterbacks.
He's kind of gone as McCord's gone, which I mean, that's fine. McCord's come a long way from August to now. He's made a lot of strides.
Allow us to be the first also. So me and Curtis Fader and I were the last ones here last night. We were looking up some bowl games and projections and what have you. So it seems like almost a certainty that I was going to play a January 1st bowl game in Orlando.
Citrus Bowl.
Either the Citrus Bowl or who were those guys that were there last night? What's the Outback Bowl called now?
That's in Tampa.
Right. I said Florida, right? Or did I say
Oh, you said Orlando, but yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, what is
Florida.
the Outback Bowl called now?
ReliaQuest Bowl?
The
ReliaQuest.
ReliaQuest.
Yeah. One of those two, it seems like, and I feel like even the Citrus Bowl might have the advantage in those because
That would be, you're essentially going as the 4th best Big Ten team,
Right.
which would be you're 10-3.
even if they lose to Nebraska, they'd be the 4th best Big Ten team
Yeah, sure.
because you got to think Michigan or Ohio State's going to be in the CFP. I mean, there's a path that both of them could be. It's not
Especially
super
with
likely.
Florida
this year.
State maybe
Yeah,
shaky now, yeah.
it's not super likely, but it is possible that both could be. If that happened, I might be in the Orange Bowl. I don't know. But then you've got both Michigan and Penn State are probably going to get next elite bowl game invites for the. I know Orange Bowl was one of them, and then I forget what the other big at-large game was.
We'll have to see what happens with Penn State too. If I remember right, I think Drew Aller went out with an injury as well.
But I feel like both those teams are going to get super top tier bowl invitations, assuming Penn State wins next week. Who do they play? Somebody bad. I think they play Michigan State maybe.
Who's Penn State?
Yeah, they
play?
usually do.
Yeah, who's Penn State
They usually play
Sounds
the
like
land
Drew
grant.
Aller is week to week, and I'm looking at Penn State's.
But nevertheless,
Someone listening to this 3 days from now is screaming Penn State schedule at us. As we
It's Michigan State.
Is it Michigan State?
Yeah, 6 p.m. They play for a trophy, the land grant trophy or something.
Yeah. Oh, Lang Rand Trophy. So I would say that, yeah, Hawkeye fans can just about book their plane tickets to Florida for January 1st.
I believe we've booked some accommodations in Indianapolis.
Yep.
Is that what you said?
Did that on Friday. Had a cancellation policy. Didn't want to jinx them. But yeah, we did, and we're planning that trip now.
That'll be fun.
3-tier bunk beds for us? What do we got?
That's what we requested. They said they don't do them, and we said, well, we won't take no for an answer, and we'll see what happens. Indianapolis is such a fun town. I don't know if you guys
Never been.
I've been for the Big Ten tournament, basketball.
Yeah. That I was there in 2015 covering Michigan State against Iowa, and that was I still remember the word coming out as we were getting closer to kickoff of yeah, one of the big bars down there ran out of beer. Iowa fans went nuts. And it was almost in a concerned
what are we gonna do?
Guys, what do we do? And I think that might have been the night before, that Friday night it happened. Because College Game Day was because it was essentially a college football playoff quarterfinal between Iowa and Michigan State. That was a day, man. That was something.
I think didn't Iowa do that to Chicago too? Did they run one? Of
They
those
tend to
cars
do
out?
that. They're a bit of a.
Are they running the Midwest out of beer this season?
Iowa fans tend to be an invasive.
Iowa State has
group.
one too.
Yeah, they did that in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's hey, in heaven there is no beer. That's what we've been told. I'm still looking for the Bible verse that references that. What was the question that was that Doctorman yesterday that asked Logan Lee something about Job?
The book of Job. Like feels like this team is like something out of the book of Job, just with all the
everything that goes wrong. The second act of a 3-act play, just every situation that rises. Hey, that's what makes it fun once you pull out and look top down, and it's quite the ride. And you still get to all get to go to Lincoln now for Black Friday.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun week.
Go to Nebraska. How about that? We do get to go to Indianapolis, though. That's what I'm looking for.
But I've never been to Lincoln.
It's a fun town. Nebraska fans are surprisingly nice. So
yeah, you got a bunch of like free turkey sandwiches or something.
I forget what they're called, but they're like sausage and cheese sandwiches. These
Breakfast
fans
sandwiches.
just started.
Did you get breakfast sandwiches?
Runza?
Yeah, those runzas. They bought us like 3, and we're like, we have money. We're not poor.
So we'll obviously look ahead to Nebraska and Mike's chances of getting free sandwiches from people in Lincoln. Coming up on Wednesday on Eye on the Hawks. Thanks for everybody for watching and listening, however you may be. We'll start recapping our trip to Lincoln, or start looking ahead to our trip to Lincoln and to the trip to Indy on Wednesday with Eye on the Hawks. Thanks for subscribing to social media and everything like that. We'll see you on the next episode of Eye on the Hawks.